Hey kids, Sarah Mackenzie here. We are going to take a close look at this month's Family Book Club book, which is Goodbye Summer, Hello Autumn by Kenard Pak. This is such a beautiful book, so let's take a close look at it together. So the first thing we're going to look at is the cover. This is a beautiful cover, right? I would invite you not just to look at it now before you read the book, but also after you've read it. After you've read the whole story, see if you can come back to the cover and tell me what you notice about it. Tell me what you notice about what the cover says about how the story begins and ends, and whether it happens suddenly or gradually. You may even notice something about how the story begins and ends from the first letters to the last letters. Something's happening on this page. In fact, if I was to cover up this side of the page, and then I was to cover up this side of the page, you might think we were looking at different books. I see a scarf and orange colors, and on this side I see it looks like summer. We're going to say goodbye summer and hello to fall, hello to autumn, which of course is another word for fall, in this book. Another really interesting thing that I really enjoyed looking at when I was reading this book is how Kenard Pak uses textures. Now, before we look at the textures inside the book, I want to make sure you know something. Kenard Pak has done a lot of illustration. He's worked on a lot of books. So in your Family Book Club guide, you'll find a whole bunch of book recommendations illustrated by Kenard Pak. However, he's also worked on some movies you may be familiar with. He did animation work for Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and also for Madagascar 3. And some others, but those were the two that my kids would recognize. So I wanted to make sure you know that. Okay, let's look at the texture. Okay, here we are again with the book. So let's open it up. First of all, you can see some textures on this cover even. So I'm noticing that there are some flecks, it almost looks like ink spilled right here. And some different textures on different parts of the page. But if you go ahead and go into the third spread, now remember that a spread is the first full cover or full page. When you can see both pages of illustrations, that's a spread. So this is our first spread. It's so big and wide, I can't even fit it into my camera here for you. That's the first. And the second, we're going to look at the third spread. I would invite you to take a close look, especially at this spread, and see how many different textures you can find as you're looking at it. Now, in the colophon at the back of the book, do you remember what that is? I'll show you. The very back, in the very bottom, this says, the artist used watercolor and pencil, digitally enhanced, to create the illustrations for this book. So we can tell that he did this work with watercolor, colored pencil, and then he also used digital. So he put it into the computer and altered it digitally, probably with something like Photoshop. We'll ask him about that when we have our interview with him. But for now, check out the different textures and see how many different ones you can find. Also, how does that texture make you feel? What do you think it adds to the art for him to use those textures? Another thing I thought was really interesting to look for is just how many different ways that he draws and paints trees. So let's look at this page. These trees are almost, you can kind of tell that it's a watercolor crown of the tree here, with maybe he used colored pencils to put in the leaves. Looks like he probably used watercolor for the trunks. Maybe that's colored pencil. I think that might be watercolor. But some of them are translucent, you know, kind of see-through. Some of them are big, fat, and sturdy. And then we've got these trees over here that are a bit more twiggy. Oh, and here's a whole different kind of a tree right here. Aha, now that's some interesting bark. I wonder if you've ever seen a tree with that kind of bark, and what that might be. Let's keep looking. Ah. Now look at how the trees are changing. So just noticing the different ways that he paints trees is interesting. Now, I know this book is geared toward younger kids, but older kids don't miss those trees, because an interesting challenge would be to see how many of them you can recreate and paint yourself. All you need are some watercolors and some colored pencils, and see if you can replicate some of the trees that he's made in the book. Even better, use the book as a springboard to do some nature study and see if you can find out what those trees might be. Go on a walk and see if you can find some in your neighborhood and see if you can label them. What is that tree with the interesting bark in his book? What do you think the different kinds of trees, different shapes of trees are? There is actually a book that I really like for this kind of thing, and it's called Nature Anatomy by Julia Rothman. Let me show you the inside of this book so you can see how you can use it. This book is called Nature Anatomy by Julia Rothman. She's got a whole bunch of books. I love them. And I find that I can copy a lot of the illustrations because they're clear and detailed enough where you can tell what it is and you can label the parts, but they're simple enough that I can copy them if I have a black pen. I can pretty much, look at them and sort of copy them into my sketchbook and label them, which is a really fun way for me to do some nature drawing. So toward the middle of the book, and about page 105 here, you're going to see different kinds of North American trees and the clear leaf shapes that are different in the different kinds of trees. And if you keep going, you'll even see a spread of different kinds of bark, which will help you identify different kinds of trees and more details. Also leaves, leaf structure, the anatomy of a fern, all kinds of cool things in this book. So this can really be a help for you as you're digging into your nature study, no matter how old you are. I love using it myself, and my kids also enjoy using it. One of the really fun things you can do to say goodbye to summer and hello to autumn, no matter how old you are, is a scavenger hunt. So we've included one for you in your family book club guide. That's on the very back page. So you can use this all throughout the season and see how many, as the seasons change, that you find and are able to check off. Have fun reading Goodbye Summer, Hello Autumn. I think this is going to be such a great book to help us welcome the new season. And don't forget, at the end of the month, Kenard Pak is coming to Read-Aloud Revival Premium. He's going to tell us all about the process for making these books, because it's a whole series. And if you have any questions for Ken, go to the website to find out where you put your questions, where you submit them in advance. There's also a link right in your family book club guide so that you can submit your questions for Ken, and you want to do that ahead of time. He's coming September 29th. You can get all the details in your book club guide. Enjoy reading this month. Have fun.